Good evening, dear students of the first year English literature. Today we are going to have our second lecture of our course entitled Introduction to English Drama. Today we are going to discuss and analyze the first act of Henrik Ibsen's Idol's House. Of course, you now know that any play consists of a number of acts, and each act consists of a number of scenes. طبعا كلمة act here means فصل من فصول مسرحية، أما scene معناها مشهد. طبعا المسرحية تتكون من عدة فصول وعدة مشاهد، كل فصل عبارة عن مجموعة من المشاهد. أحيانا عندنا مسرحية من فصل واحد دون مشاهد، وأحيانا عندنا مسرحية من مشهد واحد حتى، وأحيانا عندنا مسرحية مثلا من 3 فصول أو 5 فصول، وكل فصل يتراوح عدد مشاهده من مشهدين إلى 3 وحتى 5. Before we going into the depth of Idol's House, I'd like to tell you something about how to deal with a play. Any play should have a kind of a plot, as I told you before, and the plot is a logical sequence of events in any work of art. So you should know about its plot, and that will not happen unless you read the entire text. So your mission, your first and foremost mission, is that you should read. You must, indeed. You must read the text, the full text at home. Then, of course, in addition to the plot, which comes first, you have to know about the characters. Who are the characters of a play? And another or a third thing that's more important than other elements of a drama is that you should know about the setting of the play. The setting. I'll help you with that all, of course. First of all, let's have a look about who are the characters we're going to have in our play, Idol's House. On page number 20, Idol's House by Henrik Ibsen. The characters are Torvald Helmer. He is the husband of Nora Helmer, his wife. We have their friend, their close and intimate friend, the friend of the family, Dr. Krogstad, Dr. Rank. And then Mrs. Lind, a close friend and old friend of Mrs. Nora, Mrs. Lind. Then Nils Krogstad. Krogstad is the villain of this play, who is a clerk at the bank where Mr. Helmer works or is a manager. Of course, Helmer and Nora have 3 young children. Annie, their nurse, and there's a nurse who cares about the children called Annie. We have a housemaid, a trivial character, and so he doesn't mention her name, and a porter. Of course, you have to know about the setting of a play. The setting here takes place in Helmer's house. This is the locale of the place or the play. ده المكان الذي تدور فيه أحداث المسرحية. But if you want to know about the time setting of this play is Christmas Eve. We have Christmas, the time of Christmas. وقت عيد الميلاد المجيد عند الإخوة المسيحيين. But he doesn't specify, Ibsen, he doesn't specify which year, which century. Okay. One more important thing is that you should know about the themes of a play. Write after me, please. Write down this, very important. The themes of Idol's House are: number 1, the absence of female identity in a male-dominated society. In a male-dominated society. The absence, غياب, of female identity, غياب الهوية النسائية أو النسوية بنسميها في الأدب. In a male-dominated society، في مجتمع يسيطر عليه الذكور. في برضو بعض الموضوعات الأخرى في المسرحية like marriage is the theme. marriage, wealth or money، ده رقم 3 يا شباب. wealth or money. love, the theme of love. gender inequality in Victorian Europe. يعني ايه gender gender inequality in Victorian Europe، يعني عدم المساواة بين الأنواع الذكر والأنثى في المجتمع الأوروبي في عصر الملكة فيكتوريا. Another theme is deception، الخداع، deception. Then individual versus society، the individual versus the entire society. Okay. Appearances and reality. Appearances or outward appearances and reality، يعني المظاهر والحقيقة أو الواقع. These are the bunch of themes we're going to have knowledge of during the course of our discussion and analysis of A Doll's House. Okay, so we knew about the themes, we knew about the characters, the setting. Now let's turn to have a general idea about the plot. A general idea of A Doll's House, the plot. As I told you, the plot is a logical sequence of events in a play. هي التسلسل المنطقي للأحداث. If I ask you in the exam, what is the plot of A Doll's House, you should do it in a similar way. Okay? A Doll's House, in this play, Nora Helmer once secretly borrows a large sum of money. يعني في مرة من المرات بتستلف تقترض مبلغا من المال. Of course, Nora Helmer is the protagonist of this play. هي بطلة أحداث المسرحية. And at our college, we knew about the difference between who is a protagonist and who is a hero. Who can be called a hero and who can be called, or who is a protagonist. So Nora Helmer is a protagonist of A Doll's House. And she, at a certain point of time, she borrows secretly a large sum of money from someone, okay, so that her husband can recuperate from a serious illness. حتى يتعافى زوجها من مرض خطير في وقت معين يعني. She never tells him of this loan. She never tells her husband of this borrowing or loan, and has been secretly paying it back in small installments. يعني عمرها ما قالت لزوجها عن ذلك القرض أو الاقتراض أو السلف يعني، وكانت تسدد أقساط ذلك القرض أو تسدد ذلك القرض على أقساط، هذه السلفة على أقساط. إزاي؟ By saving from her household allowance. household allowance يعني ايه household allowance؟ يعني مصروف البيت. كانت بتحوش من مصروف البيت ما يتبقى من مصاريف البيت عشان تسدد القسط اللي هي تسببت فيه أو القرض أو السلفة اللي هي تسببت فيها دون علم زوجها. وخلي بالك دون علم زوجها، وده كان شيء يعني غير محمود أخلاقيا ولا اجتماعيا. حط 100 خط تحت ولا اجتماعيا في ذلك الوقت من القرن ال19 في أوروبا. كان غير مسموح للمرأة أنها تقترض، غير مسموح للمرأة أنها تأتي بفعل يعني من وراء زوجها أو بدون علمه، ناهيك أنها كانت تحرم من التعليم أو لا تنال نفس المقدار من التعليم كالرجل في أوروبا، وكمان كانت تحرم من الميراث. يعني كان في حقوق كتير ضيعة من المرأة في ذلك الوقت. So her husband, who is Torvald, thinks her careless and childlike. Look how he belittles his wife. كيف يقلل من شأنها. He always thinks of her as being careless and childlike, spendthrift, يعني مسرفة, مهملة, تتصرف كالأطفال. Okay? And often calls her his doll. ودايما بيسميها his doll, يعني عروسته. And so of course it is Idol's house. Okay? When he is appointed as a director of the local bank, his first act is to relieve a man, يعني to fire a man or dismiss a man, a clerk, who was once disgraced for having forged his signature on a document. Oh, so we have a kind of retrospection. عندنا هنا ما نسميه باسترجاع لأحداث ماضية. هنا زوجها بيقرر ان هو يطرد موظف عنده. ليه؟ اللي هو بالمناسبة كروغستاد، زي ما قلت في البداية، كروغستاد because he was disgraced، يعني كان سمعته سيئة، ارتكب شيء يعني بالنسبة للمجتمع غير أخلاقي في الوقت ده، اللي هو having forged his signature، يعني زور توقيعه، زور التوقيع بتاعه على وثيقة معينة. لم يذكر في أحداث مسرحية ما هي تلك الوثيقة. المهم إن هو قام بفعل شنعاء في ذلك الوقت وهي التزوير، forgery. And so he wants to fire him. This man اللي هو اسمه Nils Krogstad is the person from whom Nora has borrowed the money. مشكلة. Krogstad is the person from whom Nora has borrowed the money. هو الشخص اللي استلفت منه الأموال. It is then revealed that she herself, Nora, she forged her father's signature in order to get the money. طبعا ساعة لما أخذت السلفة من كروغستاد، هي أخذت هذه السلفة بناء على ورقة أو وثيقة وصل أمانة، لكنها كانت لا تستطيع أن تدون اسمها على وصل الأمانة، لأنها كان غير مسموح لها قانونا كسيدة. طبعا شايف التفرقة العنصرية في الوقت ده كانت عاملة ازاي. كان غير مسموح لها أنها تسجل أو تدون اسمها، تمضي على أي ورقة رسمية، غير مسموح للمرأة في الوقت ده. فكان المفروض تأخذ هذه الورقة إلى والدها حتى يوقع عنها بدلا منها، ولكنها لم تفعل، بشكل ما لم تفعل، زورت في الأوراق. And so she committed the same crime as Krogstad. نفس الجريمة اللي ارتكبها كروغستاد. Krogstad threatens to reveal Nora's crime. عايز يفضحها. And thus disgrace her، وبالتالي يشهر بيها في المجتمع. And her husband، مش بس هي، زوجها اللي هو عايز طبعا يفصله من الشغل. بس إلا إذا unless Nora can convince her husband, okay, not to fire him. لازم تقنعه ان هو ما يطردوش. Nora tries to influence her husband. وفعلا هي بتحاول تؤثر عليه. But he thinks of Nora as a simple child, his lark, small bird, spendthrift, childish. يعني بيعتبرها لسه طفلة صغيرة مش فاهمة الحياة، ما تعرفش تتصرف كويس. Who can't understand the value of money or business. ما تفهمش كويس في أمور المال والأعمال. طبعا ده totally wrong. He is totally wrong because she can and she did it before. Thus, when Helmer discovers that Nora has forged her father's name، لما هو بيكتشف الخديعة دي اللي حصلت في حياته، of course he never was told that she did that. عمرها ما قالت له إن هي استلفت ولا اقترضت. مش بس كده، she forged. She committed the crime of forgery, of which he wants to punish Krogstad by firing him from the bank. Okay, how ironic. Of course, he is shocked. he is ready to disclaim his wife, even though she had done it for him. He decides to divorce her, to have divorce, okay, or to take away her children from her so that they are not being brought up in this rotten atmosphere, in this socially and morally rotten atmosphere. ما ينفعش ولاده يكبروا في هذا الجو من اللا أخلاق واللا فضيلة. Of course. على الرغم ان هي عملت ده عشان خاطره لما كان تعبان. But he didn't appreciate that. He cared more about his status, his social condition in this society, in this highly conservative society. في هذا المجتمع الايه المحافظ بشكل كبير جدا. وكمان in this biased society. يعني هذا المجتمع المتحيز ضد المرأة, against women. Okay. Later on, when all is solved, okay, when the debt is paid, or when there is a kind of compromise, بيحصل حل وسط كده نعرفه في أحداث المسرحية بيتم. When this happens, Nora sees that her husband isn't worth her love. بتقرر إن زوجها لا يستحق ما فعلته من أجله. لا يستحق نظرة عطف أو حب تجاهه. Okay, because he doesn't appreciate her efforts. Okay, only he cares about his image in the society. كان مهتم فقط بصورته في المجتمع. But when this when he came to be allowed a resolution at the end, okay, he decides to maintain her or keep her at house, okay, so that he cannot divorce her. But she doesn't accept that. She says that her husband isn't worth her love, and she leaves him. She leaves her husband and her children for one search, for one purpose, the quest for her identity as a woman, which has been suppressed by this 19th century man. Let's now have a kind of a summary of the major incidents of Act 1 of A Doll's House. What I want to say is that very cheerful, the pretty and girlish Nora Helmer enters from the outdoors. I'll tell you a summary. طبعا summary يا شباب يعني ايه ملخص للفصل الأول. Of course, I asked you to read the first act, and inshallah next lecture at our faculty we're going to have a debate or a discussion of the major points in the text relating to the first act. So, very cheerful, the pretty and girlish Nora. Okay, she was very pretty, okay, cheerful. She enters from the outdoors, humming a tune, يعني بتغني أغنية كده صغيرة، بتتمتم بأغنية, while she deposits her parcels on the whole table. كان معها بعض الأغراض. Is that my little lark twittering out there? Calls her husband from the study. قاعد في المكتب. وين ده؟ هل دي زوجتي اللي بيوصفها بوصف lark؟ اوكي، إنها lark. طبعا كلمة lark معناها عصفور مغرد صغير. And he emerges to greet her. They talk about their improved income because, you know, Torvald had just been appointed as bank manager. لسه متعين كمدير. And Nora chatters about Christmas presents she has just purchased for the children. Helmer suspects that his Miss Sweet Tooth, Miss Sweet Tooth, as he calls her, has been breaking rules. يعني breaking rules كانت تخالف القواعد، قواعد البيت اللي هو رساها. إزاي؟ by indulging herself in prohibited confection. عملت إيه؟ Nora denies the accusation, but the audience has seen her pop macaroons in her mouth as she came in. Okay. يعني ايه macaroons؟ يعني حلوى كانت بتاكلها وهو كان منعها منها. دي قواعد البيت عنده، ممنوع تاكل الحلوى دي، لكن هي كانت داخله تاكل. So Nora changes the subject and talks about decorating the tree. The maid tells Torvald that their family friend Dr. Rank awaits him in his room. بيجي في اللحظة دي دكتور رانك صديقهم مستني هيلمر في المكتب. When Helmer has gone, another visitor arrives to see Nora. في حد تاني بيزور نورا في اللحظة دي. And the two women, who is Nora and her old friend Mrs. Lind, they haven't seen each other for the past 10 years. مرت 10 سنين على آخر لقاء جمعهم. And they are alone now on the stage. Kristen Lind, this woman, this old friend, having just returned to her hometown, tells Nora all about her unfortunate life. Married unlovingly, يعني she married someone, but this marriage wasn't based on a love relationship. Okay, she or her husband died. Okay, he has been dead now for 3 years, and she experienced it. After that, she experienced a lot of hardships. Okay, a lot of hardships. يعني عانت من الكثير من الويلات بعد وفاة زوجها. A lot of hardships of a woman who was forced to make her own way. She points out that her toilsome life has aged her. يعني تلك الحياة المليئة بالمتاعب كبرتها في السن. Okay? While Nora is as innocent and childish as ever. لكن في الوقت ده برضو هي بتحسد زي صاحبتها شوية، بتقول إنها بريئة كما كانت دائما ومرحة كالطفل كما كانت. Okay, so Nora declares that she too has worked and sacrificed all these years, and not her friend alone. No, she suffered the most, even more than Mrs. Lind herself. Nora declares that she has too worked and sacrificed all these years. Her toil has saved someone she loves. Very, very much. This one is her husband, of course. She boasts and she tells Kristen how she borrowed 20 or 250 pounds. بتقول لها في اللحظة دي هي استلفت قد ايه عشان تنقذ زوجها. حوالي 250 جنيه استرليني. 250 جنيه استرليني. طبعا كل ده عشان تثبت لزميلتها انها لا، ده هي كمان حياتها كانت صعبة جدا، ولم يعني تمرح ولم تحظى بحياة رغدة وجميلة يعني طيلة هذه 10 سنوات. No. So she borrowed about 250 pounds when Torvald's health was in such danger that he needed to go to a southern climate to improve his condition. يعني هي ليه استلفت فلوس؟ كان لازم الدكتور نصحه في الفترة دي عشان ان هو لازم يغير جو، يذهب الى الجنوب حتى يعني يحصل فرصة لتغيير الجو. فراح الى جنوب إيطاليا. She describes how she secretly repaid installments of the debt by stinting on her personal expenses. يعني على حساب نفقاتها الشخصية وفرت. and taking and copying were to do at night. وكانت طول الليل تسهر تعمل شغل يعني copying طباعة أو نقل أو كتابة. Mrs. Land is amazed that Nora hasn't mentioned the matter to her husband in all these years. She kept it a secret. He would never consent to borrowing money, Nora explains. And involuntarily she exposes the real reason for the deception. ليه قالت لها بقى؟ قالت لها ليه أو إيه السبب الحقيقي وراء هذا النوع من deception أو خداع. To save face for Helmer. حتى تحفظ ما وجهه أمام الناس وأمام المجتمع. She says, by the way, how painful and humiliating. ده نص من أحداث المسرحية أنا مقتطف ليكم. How painful and humiliating it would be for Torvald, with his manly independence, to know that he owed me anything, says Nora. It would upset our mutual relations altogether. Our beautiful happy home would no longer be what it is now. Mrs. Land, still amazed, who is still amazed, asks if Nora will ever reveal her secret to Helmer. إمتى هتقولي له على السر يا نورا؟ Someday she shall, of course. She answers that someday I'm going to tell him, with a half smile. Why a half smile? Because she is not sure. Indeed, she's not sure. It may be good to have something in reserve in future years when she is no longer as attractive as now. When, as she says, by the way, when my dancing and dressing up and reciting have palled on him, Nora says. يعني لازم أحتفظ بشيء حتى النهاية حتى لا أفقد كل شيء. The maid announces يعني الخادمة بتعلن عن شيء. إيه؟ There is another visitor. في زائر تاني أو تالت للمكان. For Torvald. جاي من أجل Torvald اللي هو Mr. Krogstad. The newcomer اللي هو Krogstad is a lawyer and money lender. يعني محامي ومرابي بيسلف فلوس مقابل إيه؟ زيادة في ربا يعني. Who now works at the bank. وبيشتغل في البنك حاليا. Nora seems relieved when he says he has come merely to talk with Helmer about dry business matters. يعني فرحت جدا لما اكتشف ان هو جاي مش عشانها، لا ده عشان يقابل زوجها فيما يتعلق بأمور العمل يعني. Leaving the study to allow Krogstad a private talk with him, with the chief, Dr. Rank emerges to greet the ladies. دلوقتي دكتور رانك بيخرج من عند Mr. Helmer and he meets the ladies, Mrs. Lind and Mrs. Helmer, who is Nora. He is obsessed with thoughts of illness. الراجل ده موهوم بأفكار عن المرض. هو فعلا مريض، جسديا مريض. Okay. The physician, this physician or doctor. طبعا كلمة physician يا شباب معناها طبيب. Okay. طبيب معالج. He criticizes and gives the description of this man Krogstad as morally diseased. يبقى Mr. or Dr. Rank بيصف كروجستاد اللي لسه داخل المكتب على أساس إن هو morally diseased يعني مريض أخلاقيا. Of course you know that he has forged a signature in one of the documents. Like many of his physical disease patients, he continues to say, the lawyer refuses to submit to his fate despite great agony in the hopes of a change in his position. This idea draws a parallel between Krogstad's situation and that of Dr. Rank. But whereas Krogstad is morally corrupt or diseased, Dr. Rank is physically diseased. هو فعلا مريض جسديا Dr. Rank. The lawyer feels his job is threatened now that Helmer is his chief, while Rank, okay, ill with a congenital disease, okay, يعني عنده مرض وراثي Dr. Rank, is close to losing his life. With this in mind, Absent indicates that Krogstad clings يعني بيتعلق بيتشبث ب clings to whatever might keep him at the bank, of course with the help of Nora. Now that he has dismissed his visitor, Torvald emerges from the study and meets Mrs. Lind for the first time, recommending that Helmer find a job for Kristen. Nora makes up a little story to push her point, to convince him of doing that. Her friend rushed to town, the wife relates, just as soon as she heard of Helmer's promotion in hopes of finding a place at the bank. She is frightfully anxious to work under some clever man so as to protect herself. These are the words of Nora to her husband. Very sensible. Her husband's response is, that's very sensible, ده شيء معقول تماما. And with a well-favored, we'll see what we can do, he said to her, we'll see what we can do. هيساعدها عشان تلاقي شغل. Mrs. Lind. He resumes his visit with Rank in the study. بيكمل يعني لقاء وحديثه مع دكتور رانك في المكتب. Now that Mrs. Lind has left to seek lodgings, يعني بتدور على نزل أو مكان تقعد فيه, Nora admits the nurse and loudly greets her 3 children. She wants to meet or to have her children in. During the noisy romp, they play together in the house, Nora and her children. Nora crawls under the table to play hide and seek. She emerges growling and the children shriek with laughter. No one has heard Krogstad's knock on the door. He enters, and when Nora emerges from under the table again, she gives a stifled cry at discovering her villain in front of her. Ushering the children out of the room, she tells her children to go away. Nora is alone with Krogstad for the first time in this play. He has come, as he says, to ask her to intercede or to interfere. يعني جاي يقول لها اتدخلي في الموضوع. Okay? With Helmer on his behalf, for only her influence can protect the job which Kristen Lind might take from him. ليه تتدخل؟ لأن ميسيس ليند اللي لسه جاية جديد على البيت وعلى المدينة بعد غياب 10 سنين ممكن تاخد الوظيفة بتاعته منه. هو هيطرد فبالتالي هي تاخدها منه، فجاي يضغط على ميسيس هيلمر عشان تساعده الوظيفة دي تفضل ليه. He tells her that for the sake of his growing sons, he has been working to restore his fallen position in society. يعني ايه fallen position؟ يعني his forsaken reputation, because he has forsaken his reputation by his own will. Okay, and he is prepared to fight for this small post in the bank as if he were fighting for his life, as if he were fighting for his life. Nora shows little interest. في البداية ما بتهتمش قوي بكلامه until he says he's able to compel her to comply with his request. بيهددها. Krogstad feels that he can prove she borrowed the 250 pounds from him by forging her father's signature. بيهددها ان هو يبوح بسرها انها استلفت منه وكمان زورت التوقيع بتاع والدها. Her situation was desperate, okay, when she needed the money in the past. يعني هي بتقول له وساعتها حاجة ودلوقتي حاجة، أنا كنت مضطرة. Her father, who died soon after that event, was too ill at the time to be consulted about such matters. يعني مش عايزة، والدها كان عيان في الفترة دي، بتبرر موقفها ليه هي زورت توقيع. والدها كان عيان في المستشفى، ما كانش يقدر يوقع على شيء ولا داري بأي شيء. Surely it is no crime for a woman to do everything possible to save her husband's life, her family's life. Nora declares to him. Forgery is a criminal act, however. لكن دي جريمة. Okay. And the law cares nothing about motivation. القانون لا يأبه بالدوافع أو الغرض الذي من أجله تمت هذه الجريمة. He tells her that the one false step in his own life, the one that ruined his reputation and his career, was nothing more nor nothing worse than what you have done yourself. غلطتي انت هي نفس غلطتك، أنا ارتكبت ما انت ارتكبتيه بالضبط. This is Nora's first confrontation with the harsh inflexibility of lawful society. For the last time, Krugstad asks Nora to help him keep his post. If necessary, he says, if necessary, he would produce the forged bond in court. يعني لو اضطر في النهاية خالص سيلجأ إلى المحكمة ويسلم ذلك التوقيع المزور، تلك الوثيقة المزورة. His parting words frighten Nora. يعني هو ماشي قال لها الكلمتين دول، فبالتالي هي اترعبت شوية. And she tries to distract herself by considering her Christmas decorations. تحاول تشغل نفسها بحاجة عشان ما تفكرش في الموضوع عن طريق انها تزين شجرة عيد الميلاد. Interrupting her thoughts, Torvald comes to ask what Krugstad wants. He is angry at Nora's evasive answer. يعني شايفها كده زوجته انها بتراوغ شوية في الكلام. But she finally admits that the lawyer begged her to say a good word in his behalf. قالت له ان هو جاي عشان يطلب مني ان انا اتكلم بالنيابة عنه واثر عليك. Torvald becomes agreeable after Nora coaxes him to be her supervisor in choosing her costume for the fancy dress party they are to attend the next evening. يعني ده مشهد تاني او لقطة تانية بعد لقطة ان هي تحاول تأثر على زوجها، ان هو بيختار لها هي تلبس ايه عشان حفلة رأس السنة the next evening. Then she slowly leads the talk back to Krugstad. بعد كده بترجع للموضوع تاني بتاع Krugstad. He once committed a forgery, as Helmer says, out of necessity. يعني نورا بتقول له للضرورة، هو اضطر. Any man is allowed one false move, Torvald continues, as long as he openly confesses and accepts his punishment, which he didn't. Krugstad didn't take his punishment. He didn't accept it. Okay? He wasn't convicted. And he got away with it. But Krugstad, by his cunning, by his wits, بذكاء, avoided the consequences of his guilt. He goes on to describe how in fiction and poison pollutes the very atmosphere breathed in such a home as Krugstad's, while Nora becomes increasingly agitated because this reflects her own situation. Torvald continues his lecture on morals, on how such appearances matters greatly in such a society, in such a conservative society. In his career as a lawyer, her husband affirms to her he has discovered that everyone who has gone bad early in life has a deceitful mother. A deceitful mother. أكيد كانت أمه مخادعة، يعني هي ورثت له الخداع. Okay? A deceitful mother. Since it is she, okay, who should have influenced her son not to do that, or dictates to her children morality and good manners. He leaves Nora. Mr. Helmer leaves his wife, stunned with horror at his words. When the nurse enters with the children, she refuses to see him or to see them. Okay? It can't possibly be true. She says to herself, it can't possibly be true. Deprave my little children. Poison my home. هل أنا هعمل زي كروجستاد؟ زي ما والدة كروجستاد عملت، أو زي ما كروجستاد عمل في أولاده؟ هل هلطخ سمعتهم في المكان أو في المدينة؟ هل هشوه سمعتهم؟ هل هورث لهم ذلك أو تلك الأخلاق الغير حميدة؟ هل زوجي محق فيما يقول she is pale with terror، خافت جدا at her thoughts while the curtain descends. في اللحظة دي الستاير بتنزل على نورة، ستاير المسرح طبعا. ده نهاية الفصل الأول.